Coming up, torrential rain in Texas leads to flash floods.
It was basically like a wall of water coming down, and the people were unsuspecting.
We're about to rescue two out of the trees right next to the bridge here.
And the helicopter hug of a lifetime.
I was hugging him, kissing him, and thanking him for saving my life.
And later,
Units responding.
an apartment fire in Pennsylvania forces many to question what is valuable.
Anything with a pulse, just get it out.
That is the beginning of them rebuilding their lives.
Deep in the heart of Texas, the Hill Country is known for its beautiful rivers and breathtaking views. But when storms roll in, like they did in October of 2018, the area can go from breathtaking to life-taking. Fortunately, the Lone Star State has no shortage of heroes.
Junction, Texas. It sits about 140 miles west of the state capital, Austin. Located where two rivers meet, the North and South Llano, this sleepy little town is a great place to fish, hunt, and just enjoy Mother Nature. But for Debbie Thomas, her short vacation with boyfriend Bobby and dog Chaps took a very unexpected turn. She soon found out why locals call Hill Country by another nickname, Flash Flood Alley.
Got there Saturday morning and camped, and we'd planned on leaving Monday morning to go home. We'd been fishing Sunday evening, and it started sprinkling a little bit, and we decided to go ahead and put the fishing stuff up and get in the camper.
I finally laid there and went to sleep, and the rain, because I like to hear rain pitter-pattering on the tin.
In Hill Country, what seems like harmless drizzle can turn into real trouble in a hurry. Since October is peak rain season, first responders were already on high alert.
Junction here in particular, we've been getting a lot of rain. They got around an estimated 12 inches of rain in a couple of hours. And with the ground being so wet and not soaking in, all of that rain just drained off into the creeks and the streams and the rivers. And so it was basically like a wall of water coming down, and the people were unsuspecting.
Luckily for Debbie and Bobby, while they slept, her trusty dog Chaps became the first hero of the day by giving them a very helpful heads up.
He jumped up on the bed, and his paws were wet. And so I looked down on the floor, and I could see the carpet was wet. So I went over and opened the door, and water was flooding in the camper. And so I woke Bobby up and told him we need to get out.
The South Llano River had flooded its banks and entered the RV park, swirling around them as they scrambled to get out. The water was already over 2.5 feet high and rising at an alarming rate.
As soon as I stepped out of the camper, I seen this pallet of 6-inch PVC already washed up against a tree. It was, I don't know, about 8 foot long, I guess, or 10 foot. And I looked up at that tree, and I knew right then that happened for a reason, that somebody was with us.
With no escape route in sight, Bobby knew that their best bet was to get as much elevation as possible as quickly as they could. The challenge was getting Debbie and Chaps up into that slippery tree.
I told Bobby it's still too high, and I was trying to grab the bark and reach up. And the next thing I knew, he pushed me up, and I made it. And then he hit me Chaps, and then somehow or another he got up.
They were safe for the moment, but needed help urgently.
The water was still rising, and I reached for my phone, and I called 911, and he said they'd have him there.
Bobby heroically managed their conditions as best he could.
It's a good thing we got in that tree right when we did. I guarantee you within 10 minutes, it's already above her waist.
Then, first responders arrived on the bridge just above the RV park. With the ferocious current making a water rescue impossible, the rescue workers had to improvise by guiding 2 life jackets on a rope toward the tree.
Finally, Bobby reached and got him off. It hadn't wanted me, and I got it on. And I had Chaps. He was like just clinging to the tree bark like a cat.
The Department of Public Safety was sending a helicopter to the scene. With the rescue team zooming toward the RV park, the flood victims finally had hope.
could hear the faint distant helicopter coming. It was the best noise I'd ever heard in my life.
Despite the devastation and danger around them, the responders thoroughly scouted the area.
You know, you kind of flip a switch, really, and you kind of put everything else in the back of your mind. I mean, you're looking at the raging water, at RVs getting swept down, whole trees getting swept down. At that point in time, I'm trying to read the water, see what obstacles could be in there, because if something happens to me, if I get put in the water, I've got to try and figure out an exit strategy.
We lowered the rescue swimmer down into the tree to our first victim, which ended up being an older gentleman, a male. There was an additional victim in the tree, a female, and she also was in possession of a dog. The male, of course, was telling us, pleading with us to take the female first, but because of where we had dropped Cody and the position of the female, it was better for us just to take him initially, which we did.
I wanted to get her Shaps first, and he said, no, I'm taking you. So, well, let me get Shaps then, because I was worried about Shaps not being able to go. I was scared to death. And he said, no, we got to go.
They lowered me down to Bobby. I have what's called a quick strap. It's basically a strap that goes around the individual, and we put it up underneath their shoulders or their armpits. And then there's a strap that goes through their legs, and we hook that up into the front so that it holds them securely in place.
Before they took off, he turned to me and said, I'll be back for you. I said, okay. And I felt better.
We performed what we call a short haul, where we don't bring them all the way up to the door of the helicopter. We just basically take them directly to a safe spot and set them right back down.
It was a relief to me. I felt good just hanging in there. It was a good feeling to be out of that tree.
There was no time to celebrate. Debbie and Chaps were still stuck in that tree that was being pounded by rushing rapids. When a devastating flash flood rolled into Junction, Texas in October 2018, trapping a couple and their dog in a tree, heroes leapt into action. Pilot Sean Stevenson, hoist operator Jeff Evans, and rescue swimmer Cody Buckaloo had just rescued Bobby Dillon from a tree.
Cody was able to get him out of the strop, get back onto the cable, and I hoisted Cody back up, and we went back to the tree for the female.
But on the way back to collect Bobby's girlfriend, Debbie Thomas, and her frightened dog, Chaps, the situation turned perilous.
It was a little more difficult with the wind blowing and the tree limbs fighting to try to get to the right spot. Coming down to actually retrieve her, I hit a limb that was up above her, and it knocked me off balance, and I lost my footing, and I actually ended up in the water myself. The TFO, Jeff, was actually able to start reeling me in, kind of like a fishing pole. It was coming down estimated 30,000 cubic feet per second. There's no way I can fight and swim against that.
We maneuvered the helicopter to get back to where he had fallen in and over him, and then we picked him back up, placed him back in the tree, and he was able to crawl up to where the female was.
Even for an experienced rescue swimmer like Cody, rescuing a person and a dog at the same time presented unique challenges.
I knew she wasn't going to leave the dog. I mean, I'm a dog owner myself, and I wouldn't want to leave my pets in that situation. It was such a confined space using the quick strap. I had to figure out a way to get her and the dog hooked up. And I put her in the quick strap backwards, which basically bowed her over forward, so she was leaning away from me.
I said, do you have one for my dog? And he said, no. I said, I got to take my dog. And he said, we'd try. But he said, you got to hold him.
She was spent. I mean, I don't blame her. I mean, she'd been there holding onto that tree for 5 hours in the fight of her life.
When I felt him kind of raise me up, I grabbed a hold, put my arms around Shep's neck, and then when we took off, I locked my legs around him.
She grabbed a hold of her dog, basically just bear hugged it, and then that's whenever we went up and were able to get out of the tree.
And it just seemed like no time we were up to the helicopter, this guy took Shaps, and then they pushed me in. I was turned, and Cody's like right here, and I was hugging him, kissing him, and thanking him, and thanking him, thanking him for saving my life.
She put her arms around Cody and just held him, pulled him in tight. You know, looked like the warmest, friendliest hug I've ever seen. And she held him all the way till we got to the ground back at the command post.
After 5 exhausting hours in that tree, Debbie gave Cody a hug that lasted nearly 2 full minutes.
All I can say is thank every one of the responders and thank Cody for risking his life for ours and everybody involved in it.
He just seemed like such a sweet guy, and I just can't wait to meet him in person again and hug and kiss him again.
10 days later, Game Warden Buckaloo returned to the scene of his most memorable rescue, marveling at the damage the flood had done and grateful for his chance to help his community.
We train with all of our other search and rescue teammates, and the fact that I can come out and I can help these people go home at the end of the day, that's the best thing in the world.
A hero to me is somebody who's got the emotional capacity to help a stranger, while their own families could also use a little bit of help, but they've recognized that that person, that stranger, needs it right now.
Heroes never get to take a break if the job calls on them, not even on the weekends. When most people are relaxing at home, maybe even watching a game, first responders have to always be ready to heed the call of action. It's that instinct in them, the want to help others in need, and that makes them who they are, heroes.
Norristown, Pennsylvania, a small borough nestled just outside of Philadelphia city limits. With just over 34,000 people, the folks here couldn't be any prouder of their wonderful community.
I love being in this area. It's so beautiful and the green out here. It's just amazing to have an area like this park and all the nature around here.
It was like any other Saturday. I usually get up, I have a routine. I clean, I do laundry, I get all my dry cleaning together.
I was the only one who decided on this apartment. We had seen few other apartments, but I liked this one better than any others. So we moved here and we were happy. We were really happy till that day.
But soon, and in a flash, everyone's lives would change.
I went into the kitchen and I just smelled this overwhelming sense of burning. And I'm going, wow, like something's on fire, something's on fire. And I look up and black smoke just started pouring out of my air conditioning vents.
We actually heard an alarm first. It was just a small chirping. We thought it was the door ajar alarm. So after maybe 30 seconds, I said, I'm just going to go out and close the door. I barely even went out into the hallway, and I saw that it was already filling with smoke. The strobe lights out in the hallway were going off.
Suddenly, somebody was banging the door, and they asked us to just move out of the building. The building is on fire, so we didn't know what to do. We were just in panic.
I grabbed my purse, which had my phone and my keys in it, and I kind of ran out the door. And I just remember turning around once I walked outside and just seeing smoke now pouring out of every single window of my apartment.
I keep all my passport and important stuff in a bag. When something happens, at least we'll be able to grab those important things. But you can't take everything.
As the residents of the 3-story apartment complex ran for their lives, the alarms at the Norristown Fire Department station were sounding, and firefighter Charles Scott was there to answer the call.
We only had 4 guys working, and we know we needed to get help there soon. And our main job at that point was to protect the stairways so we can give the occupants a chance to escape.
Units responding. Second, third floor blank.
I could hear the talk on the radio, and immediately you kind of know this beautiful June afternoon is really going to be disrupted for an awful lot of people.
It was a 3-story apartment building. We had heavy smoke coming out of the roof line. There was flames showing from the rear of the building. My partner had already started calling for help because we knew we were going to need it.
First responders always need to think of their community's needs first and their own needs last.
It was a race against time for the first responders to get the fire out.
I just remember thinking, my laptop bag, I passed it running out the door. Like if I just would have grabbed it. It had my hard drive in this front pocket, which had all of my photos on it.
As soon as we got outside, probably less than 4 or 5 minutes later, the entire roof was already up in flames. The first thing I thought of, just get people out, get the pet out, you know, just anything that with a pulse, just get it out.
As the inferno continued to grow, the first priority for the firefighters was to prevent the fire from spreading to other areas of the apartment complex or to other structures nearby.
The building was in pretty bad shape. The roof had fully collapsed. The second floor was in bad shape.
After responding to a 2-alarm fire at an apartment complex outside Philadelphia. The Norristown Fire Department had hoped they would be able to beat back the flames of the fast-moving fire. But with one section of the building engulfed in flames, the fire department turned its attention from extinguishing the fire to preventing it from spreading. The firefighters needed to contain the fire within the structure, making sure the burned walls collapsed inward instead of falling indiscriminately, potentially causing the fire to spread. Thankfully, there was a crane that could handle the job.
The fire department had made a request through us to get a machine out here that was capable of pulling down the burning walls. We're on top of a huge hill here, so you don't want anything burning to fall into the woods with the buildings below.
It took about an hour to get the fire under control, which doesn't mean it's out. It means that it's surrounded and it's not going anywhere.
Now that the fire department had gained the upper hand on the inferno, the focus quickly turned to recovery.
We secured a building to make sure nobody could break in or go inside and get hurt. We put a perimeter fence around it if the area is disaster like this one.
We kept on coming back, and they said that until the place is deemed safe, they would not let us in.
Residents who have experienced a loss, they're clearly restricted from going back in right away to see what's salvaged in their properties. The police and fire lines put in place are there for their safety.
It was very surreal, and it was just this feeling of like, I wish I could have gone back in there and grabbed something else, and you're starting to remember all the things that you have inside your home that can't be replaced.
There's a process, and we'll go through it together, and there's steps that we'll take together. Like, we got you. We're gonna walk you through this whole thing.
U.S. fire departments collectively respond to more than 350,000 house fires each year, resulting in more than $6 billion worth of damage.
We scheduled a morning to have the excavator operator here. Excavator's on the pile, and we started digging through all this debris.
All of our stuff was just in a huge pile, but I was adamant about seeing if they could find a hard drive, which has all my photos. If I could just find this bag, like I can walk away knowing I lost everything else.
She was dead set on finding her laptop. If something's in there that's that important, then we'll do everything we can to help you find it.
You have drywall, framing, insulation, all this stuff is all just in a mashed up pile. But we pulled out the bag and it was soaking wet.
And I grabbed it and I immediately opened the zipper and I saw that the laptop was just totally damaged and waterlogged. But in this front pocket, I opened it and it was bone dry.
She was ecstatic. She's like, I couldn't believe it made it. It was just exciting to see somebody so happy, you know, to have one thing out of their apartment.
I still have to see if it works. So I took it home and I plugged it in, and sure enough, it worked. I felt like I could close the door and have a little bit of closure and walk away knowing like I got something that I can't replace.
Lauren's family photos weren't the only things that were able to be recovered from the devastating fire.
We weren't really expecting anything. So when they said, hey, does this passport belong to anybody? And oh my goodness, that's mine.
And I was also able to get a sweater that my girlfriend Gwen had given me early on in our relationship that was just really special to me. So to be able to find that with almost no damage, I mean, we just took it to a dry cleaner and it's as good as new.
It's an incredible feeling to give somebody back one of their possessions that means so much to them.
Gwen's experience in this fire is something that she intends to pass along.
We've always done fire drills at school. Having to teach all the rules to my students, like leave your books, just make sure your classmates get out, make sure you get out. Going back to school this fall, I'm gonna make sure to reiterate that.
There's one common thread, that the best of people is coming out in the worst of times. And that's America.
Valuable lessons were learned from these tragedies, and what's more important, life is not about your possessions. First responders will forever be called heroes by the flood survivors in Junction, Texas, and the people of the apartment complex fire in Norristown. For that, we're all so thankful for their commitment to help those in need. I'm Ginger Z. Thanks so much for watching.